Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've got a really exciting session for you. As you know, sometimes we like to bring sort of absolute expert guests on for you. And today we're joined by Emma Johnson, who is just outstanding in her field. She's a CMA member, but what we're doing today is looking at some of the blocks that may actually arise for us when it comes to, sort of looking at money and even dealing with the bigger figures and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the theme. But what I'd like to do is to pass over to Emma. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to spotlight you for everybody, as I said. And yes, if you'd like to take it away, Emma, perhaps introduce yourself a little bit better than I have, and then explain perhaps what we're doing today.
Sure. Thank you, Janie, so much for having me. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to be here. And today, so my name's Emma Johnson. As Janie said, I'm a conscious money coach and an EFT master trainer. So I work with EFT. I fell in love with it about 10 years ago or something like that. I trained in it and I use it in what I do today, but I primarily work with small business owners who are struggling with money in their business. So either they're not earning as much as they would like to in their business, or they're not showing up and being as visible as they would like to, or they're trying all of that, but they're sabotaging themselves and they can't get to the bottom of why. And a lot of times you may or may not agree with this, but when we look around in social media, we're taught almost that a quick affirmation and everything's fine, and that we can just kind of deal with it and reframe it with this part of the brain. And that does work in certain circumstances. But there are things that are floating around in our nervous system, which I'm going to explain to you in a little bit, which actually mean that they act as a brick wall. So that no matter what else you do, the coaching, the strategies, the tactics, the funnels, whatever else, it somehow still doesn't get the traction that you would like it to get. And you still don't find yourselves able to show up unabashedly as you in your business, because there are things that talking alone and reframing can't shift. And so the reason that I'm so passionate about this very quickly is because when I learned this myself a couple of years ago, after a long history of learning with tapping, I was carrying around about £50,000 worth of debt. I was in a miserable relationship. I was living somewhere away from my family. And in the space of 12 months, and by January this year, I had sold my house, left my relationship, left corporate, paid off all my debts, got some money into savings, pivoted my business, hit all my goals. And it's literally because I'm shifting this stuff that is stuck in my nervous system. And so I'm massively passionate about helping other people do that now. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to have a look at the resistance that comes up when we set a big goal in our business. So you'll hear it all around, have a six-figure business, get hit 10K months and all of that. It really doesn't matter what your goal is. To be fair, it's a number, but what happens when we look at that number is we have a very specific reaction. So I'm going to take you through an exercise today where we're going to uncover the resistance that's lurking in our nervous system, not just in our heads. Okay. And then we're going to start to shift it with a little bit of tapping. So can you let me know, if you pop your hand up a minute, if you've done tapping before, or if you've heard of it? Everybody's aware of it, pretty much, I think. What about you, Jocelyn? Can you let me know, maybe in the chat, or Suki has as well? Fantastic. Have I missed anybody? Okay, so for the most part, everybody knows what emotional freedom technique or tapping is. When it comes to it, just follow me around and repeat after me. That's not the sort of main emphasis of this. So what I want you to do is grab a pen and paper or a tablet or whatever you're going to write on. And we're just going to do this exercise and see what comes up for you. And if at any point you start to feel a bit about it, just tap under your collarbones while I'm talking. It's not a problem at all. Okay. So I want you to think about what you would like to earn in your business, right? So if you write down the number that you would love to earn, so that you're really comfortable and really happy and free of anxiety and worry in your everyday life. So you've got your survival income, which is everything paid. And then what would it be like to have a little bit more? So stretch that a little bit and just pop your number down. And then we are going to look at 4 questions. And what I'd like you to do is say these out loud and then see how true they feel to you. Okay, 10 out of 10 being absolutely true, 0 being nope, not true at all. All right. So if you look at that number that you just wrote down, say out loud for me, if you can, if you're in a position to, or say to yourself, if not, it's impossible, looking at that number. And then just jot down next to that phrase, it's impossible, the number out of 10. How true does that feel that it's impossible to achieve that every month? And if you want to pop your number in the chat, feel free. But just definitely keep a note of it. The second sentence I'd like you to say, either out loud or to yourself, is, I can do it. Looking at that number, I can do it. And just jot down how true that feels for you when you look at that number and you say, I can do it. 10 being the truest, 0 being not true at all. Okay. The third sentence is, I deserve it. So think about that number, look at the number. You can maybe even point to it if that helps you to focus. And just say it to yourself and see how true that feels out of 10. I deserve it. I'm sure there's light bulbs going off all over the place already, because we don't think about this stuff, right? We just write numbers down usually. The fourth one is, it will probably be really hard. If you look at that number, how true does it feel to you out of 10, 10 being completely true, that it feels like it'll probably be really hard? Okay, so I'm just going to pause there for a second. Give me a nod or stick your hand up so I can see you. If anybody, I'm going to pop you on gallery so I can see you. Did anybody get an aha there? Did anybody see something that they didn't think was the case? So if you think, if you're looking at that number and saying it's impossible, and if that feels 6 out of 10 true, for argument's sake, that's 60% of your energy that feels like that goal is impossible. So what do you think that's going to do to your attempts to go and get it? Right? So that's what's running unconsciously. And when we then try to do the conscious stuff, the marketing, the showing up, the visibility, the talking about it, the networking, 60% of us isn't fully behind it because it's 6 out of 10 true that it feels impossible. Do you get me? If we go to, I can do it, what was your figure for that? And if it was high, that's great. Brilliant. If you're 80, it's like 8 out of 10, that's 80% of you feels, yeah, I can do it. So it's not that bad. You know, there's room to improve. I deserve it is a big one for a lot of business owners. So depending on the number that you put up there and how big that number is, sometimes that number can be low because we don't necessarily feel that we deserve it on some level. Now, I'm not asking you to overthink your answers here because it's literally what's inside. When we start to rationalize it, then that takes a different tack. And then the final one is, it will probably be really hard. How surprising was that for you? Because a lot of people, one of the things that creates our money set points and our ability to earn more and hold on to it, right? That's the main thing, is our family paradigms around money. So what we absorbed, our parents, our main caregivers saying, doing, how they were handling money, bills and finances. And if there was a narrative that said, well, you have to work really, really hard for any money that you earn, right? If you put a little bit more than a survival instinct, then it's going to usually kick in that, well, it'll probably be really hard. It's a programming, it's a natural reaction. But again, what happens is it acts like a brick wall. So if you said, for example, even if you said 3 out of 10, it feels true that it'll probably be really hard. 30% of your energy feels like it's going to be really hard. And so that's going to take away and detract from your efforts, right? So I'm going to do something else now. So whatever number you wrote down the first time, I'd like you to double it, please, and write that down. And we're going to go through it again, because what happens when you double it is really interesting and very, very specific to each person. So I'd like you to say again, either to yourself or out loud, looking at that doubled number, it's impossible. And how true does that now feel that it's impossible? Has that number gone up? Sometimes it can go down if the number's really big because we dissociate. And these numbers will tell us a heck of a lot about where we are in terms of alignment with that goal. The second one is, I can do it. So looking at your doubled goal, say out loud for me or to yourself, I can do it, and see how true that feels that you can do it out of 10, and jot that number down for yourself. Now, has that gone up or down when you've doubled your goal? Has it stayed the same? If it stayed the same, There's not really too much of an issue with your faith in your abilities, right? Potentially. Now say I deserve it, looking at that doubled number. And how true does that feel out of 10? 10 being completely true, that you deserve that doubled number per month, every month coming in. See if that's going to pour down, and just note that down for yourself. And that lovely last one, it'll probably be really hard. Jot that down. In the majority of times that goes up, because we have this correlation unconsciously that from our family paradigms that double the number is double the work, right? Now we all know that that's a limiting belief, because there's people out there having 100k months, on residual income. It's everything's possible. But we have a programming and a training almost that runs unconsciously that says it's probably going to be really hard, and that makes it so difficult to go after your goal. So I'm really intrigued as to what people found with that. Did everybody's resistance just jump up when you doubled it? Do you feel like it's going to be harder? Do you feel like it's going to be less possible? Let's see. No, okie dokie. Did anything change in your ability to achieve it? I can do it. And what about I deserve it? Was there anything hiding in there for you? It's just worth taking a moment to have that observation, because this is really what drives us going after goals. And a lot of research has been done into this, and a lot of business owners, particularly entrepreneurs and small business owners, don't set goals in this way. We just write a number and then we reverse engineer, what we're going to do for that quarter or that year based on that number, but we don't look at what's sitting underneath. And because we don't know what we don't know, it can stop us in our tracks. And this is why I'm really passionate about this. So let's have a look. I deserve it and I can do it went down a number. Okay. Yeah. And that's a really good observation. So even if you're looking at that as 10% of your energy, 10% of your energy was lost when you doubled it, right? Or reduced. So there's things that we can do with this. And in a few minutes, I'm going to do some tapping with you to change that energy around those 4 questions. What was the main emotion though? Because what I'm really curious about is when we look at money, we think that we're writing a number down and that we're reacting to that money on the paper or the Kindle or whatever, the iPad, I can't think, whatever you've written it on, right? But actually with money, those emotions were there first. And we manifest our money to match the emotions that were hardwired into our nervous system from being a kid, usually from being a child. And we manifest our money to match because when the emotion matches, we feel safe, even if that emotion is awful, right? So for example, if your savings are less than you would like, and you look at that savings amount, if you were to write it down and you think, oh my goodness, that's not enough, then the chances are you might be feeling something like sadness about it, or loss or disappointment. And those feelings of sadness, loss, and disappointment will have been there since very early on in your life. Maybe you had a big loss in the family. Maybe the breadwinner lost the job and then the money was gone, and it left you feeling not enough. And we recreate that in our savings. With debt, for example, it's usually around shame or something you haven't forgiven yourself or somebody else for, and it doesn't even have to be to do with money, right? But we manifest that shame, that feeling of shame in our debt. And we have a set point with all of these different types of money for how much we have to have at each level to keep that feeling matching. Now, does anybody find that fascinating, or is it just me? Because I think I didn't know this until about 18 months ago. And when I learned that, and you may share this or not, I'm not sure, let me know in the comments by all means, I felt a huge wave of relief. Because do you know what that means? It means it's not your fault. That your money reality, yes, it's your responsibility, it is everybody's, but it's not your fault. It's our nervous system programming, and it's a survival mechanism, and that is it. So can you find some kind of relief in that? Is there some level of compassion you can show yourself if, for example, like I was carrying around £50,000 worth of debt, And when I started to lift all that and get to the root of actually what it was that was sitting as unforgiveness in my system, I was able to manifest a way to pay it off. And I'm not saying it all comes easily and overnight, nothing ever does. But once we have that awareness, that's where the power is, because when we know what's causing it, we can go after it, right? We can go after it proactively. It's fascinating and an eye-opener. That's brilliant, Suki. I'm really pleased. Thank you, Janie. That's great. No one else in my family was self-employed, was brought up not to expect much. Yeah, absolutely. I have a similar situation, Tracy. I understand that really well. Yeah, so you can see, can't you? We think we're looking at the number and we're having a reaction, but actually those emotions were there first. And it goes even further than that. So with the money in our lives, there's three things that happen when we are looking at that number. We have that visceral reaction, that emotional charge, whether it's shame, disappointment, embarrassment, pain, loss, sadness, whatever it is. It might be so fleeting, you might not even be able to catch what it is. You might have to sit and think about it, but there will be a reaction. Now, if you think about that in terms of everyday life, stick a number in the comments for me. Let's just have a little laugh here. How many times a day do you think we are reminded of or come into contact with money as a subject? Have a guess. I don't know the answer to this. I'm just putting it out there. I would guess in excess of 30, 40 times a day. Adverts on the TV, stuff popping up on your phone saying you've had a direct debit or something's going out or you've gone over your overdraft limit or something like that. And in terms of our amygdala and the way that we work as people, as humans, that's micro re-traumatization, right? All the time. So we are constantly and consistently in a sometimes very low, but a consistent state of stress response. And all of that excess cortisol and adrenaline is going around our bodies, unmetabolized and causing all manner of, that's an entirely different class, as I'm sure Janie's smiling, we know, right? As health practitioners, we know about all this, but it causes so much mayhem. And so how good would it be for you if you could start to lift this? I liken it to gunk in a washing machine filter, right? If our washing machine starts misbehaving, we stick a cleaner in it and we clean the filter out. It's the same difference. It's exactly the same difference. We can't carry on with gunk in the filters and expect to function normally, right? Responsibly. And in a way that doesn't keep micro re-traumatizing us every day. So using EFT with this kind of thing is a way of clearing out those filters. So let's have a look at the comments because I'm intrigued here. Every minute, yeah, about 50 times a day. Pensions, 50, 50. Absolutely. So we were very similar, weren't we, on the amount of numbers, the amount of times a day that this comes up. So you can see 50 times a day, it's like somebody's prodding you in the back. Oi, think about money. Oi, think about your money. And if your money's not in a great shape, that's not going to be a great experience. So that was the first thing, the feelings, the visceral reaction. The second thing we always have, whether we catch it or not, is some sort of self-talk. Okay. So I'm going to do a quick experiment on this. If you pick either your savings, your debt, or your income, which one of those that kind of is not satisfactory to you? If it's all three, just pick one. And I'm not assuming, there's no judgment. Just write one down. So either how much savings you've got that isn't satisfactory, how much debt you've got that you would like less of, or how much income you're making that you don't feel is enough. And again, you don't have to share this. It's just for you. It's just to show you what happens. Now, when you're looking at that number, what's the main emotion that comes up for you? Or what's the main sort of feeling? What do you feel? Just think about that and jot it down. It might be something like, if it's savings, as we said, it might be sadness, loss, or disappointment if it's not enough. It could just be like a mild kind of, oh, here we go again. Could be I'm not safe, could be I'm vulnerable, all those sorts of things. So a quick, you feel sick. Yeah, and we're going to deal with that in a second. If you want to tap under your collarbones while I'm talking, feel free, because this is all good. If it's bringing up reactions for you, you know what to do. If you look at your savings, if it's debt that you've written down and you look at that and you think, oh my God, that's so embarrassing, or I'm mortified, or oh God, why can't I get my life together, or whatever's coming up for you, that's your self-talk. And we don't necessarily catch it in time, do we? And we're really, really nasty and ruthless to ourselves a lot of the time. Underneath embarrassment is shame, isn't it? That's the core feeling around debt. Usually it's some variation of that points to shame. And the thing with shame is, shame says, well, I don't deserve to be even angry about this because it's all my fault. And we don't ask for help from a place of shame, typically speaking, as humans, because it feels bad. We feel like we should shut ourselves away in a room and deal with it ourselves, right? Don't worry, it is going to get happier in a minute. But it's important to see this because this is where the power is, right? The clarity. And if you look at your income and you immediately think, God, that's not enough, what comes up for you then? A lot of the time it's some form of anxiety or stress, or maybe a sense of it's not enough, I'm not safe, I'm not taken care of, I feel vulnerable. And underneath that, what that means is that that feeling of unsafety has probably been there for a long time. But what I want you to do now is finish this sentence, whichever one you chose, finish this sentence and jot it down for me. This means I'm what? And just see what comes up. Don't overthink it. Now, you don't have to share it in the comments. Obviously, it's very private. But did anybody have quite an awful thing that they put? I mean, some people get really down, obviously, about, debt and things like that. And they can put things like, a lot of my clients say to me, it means I'm a complete failure. It means I'm a loser. It means I'm irresponsible. It means I'm this, that, and the other. And a lot of the time, we would never even say that to our best friend. We would never say it to anybody, even somebody we didn't like. And so how hard are we on ourselves is what I'm trying to illustrate here. And so you see this melange of everything that is going around in our subconscious all the time, prodded 50 times a day. Just going to remind you about this. There's no wonder that we don't bring our full selves to the table sometimes to sort these situations out, right? And even if we do, the nervous system blocks tend to cap our efforts. So what you find is when you start working with this kind of thing at a nervous system level and you lift the blockages, you come at solving these problems or augmenting your income with all your full power, all your enthusiasm, all of your brilliance, right? And then because you're not stressed so much, all your great ideas start coming online. And then what happens? Then the universe starts to conspire to line up things, resources, people, opportunities to help you. And so it's just an incredible thing. So when we look at the self-talk, we look at the emotions, and then the third thing is the connected trauma, which I started with, which is that emotion was already there from way back when. You can see how hard it is, can't you? To actually be wading through treacle or pushing treacle up a hill, right? When we're trying to sort this out. So can you see how all these limiting beliefs that we have and all this programming has potentially been stopping you getting any goals that you might have set yourself in your business? Does it make complete sense, or does anybody have any questions at this point? Because what's happening is, it's our analytical mind that's keeping us stuck. It's keeping us where we are. And we have to be thankful for that, because it's our analytical mind that gets us through the day to day. But they need to work in harmony. And so what we're going to do today is a little bit of tapping to shift. Well, actually, let's tailor it. So could you let me know which of the 4 sentences was the strongest for you? Was it 1, 2, 3, or 4? So it's impossible, I can do it, I deserve it, or it'll probably be really hard. Which one carried the most weight for you and felt the most untrue or the most true? Let me know. And if it's a variation, then we'll go with, okay, I deserve it. Yeah. Number 4. So we've got a good spread, which is interesting. Okay, so number 4, I deserve it. Okay. So we'll probably just do a little bit of everything because we've got plenty of time, if everybody's up for that. And what I would say is, if what we're tapping on doesn't necessarily resonate 100% with you, because we're tapping on subject 1 and you were more about subject 4, it doesn't matter. Just do it anyway, or play the game if you feel like it, and do it anyway, because we don't know what we don't know. And also we push down a lot of emotions, and things might be hiding, right? Things might be hiding. So let's do a little bit of tapping now. and see what comes up for people. So all I need you to do is follow me around, tap where I tap, say what I say, and see how you feel. Okay. And then we will come into the comments and see how you are. Everybody okay with that? Let me know. Okay. So we're just going to go straight in at the eyebrow point. It's not enough. And that feels a bit scary. I can feel it in my body. Just looking at this number, it brings up all these feelings and all this critical self-talk. There's definitely a part of me that feels like it's impossible. That number just seems too big. All these feelings that it's impossible. I'm just going to honor them. They're obviously there for a reason. Even though it doesn't feel very nice. No wonder I haven't set a big goal for myself. And no wonder I haven't achieved it. Because it just feels impossible. And I know that part of me believes I can do it. But there's part of me that doesn't believe that so much. Maybe nobody in my family has ever earned that much. I certainly have never earned that much. And it's a big number. And it feels kind of overwhelming to think about. Sorry, Janie, I'm tapping on my underarm. I do beg your pardon. 3 or 4 inches down the side of the body on a bra line. You can skip that one if you want to, but yeah, you can either reach over like that or you can do it with that hand. I do apologize. I just go on autopilot because I'm so used to doing it with my guys. I'm sorry about that. Okay, we'll go back to the top of the head. So part of me believes I can do it and part of me doesn't. What if I can't do it? What if I set myself up for failure? Part of me just believes it'll be really hard. And maybe that part of me is stopping me achieve. Maybe that part of me is stopping me achieve it. It just looks like it's going to be really hard. It's such a big number. Under the arm. It feels impossible. And then just say your number out of 10. It feels out of 10 impossible. It feels whatever number out of 10 that it's going to be really hard. And even though part of me believes I can do it, and part of me believes I deserve it, it just still feels a bit overwhelming. Or whatever, you can put your own emotions in there if you feel a different one, more strongly. This big money goal. I would really love to earn this amount. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot more freedom. For me and my family. But where do I even start? Because double the goal means double the work, right? What could I even do to add that much value? Why do I even need that much money? Maybe it's just too much. I would love to focus on that goal. And part of me isn't sure how to make it happen. I need to see how to do it right now. And I need to be able to figure it out so that I can really believe I can do it. But maybe part of me knows that I don't need to know all the hows, that it's not my job to figure out the how. I just need to know how to get started. And I have faith that the universe will line the hows up for me. There might be some obstacles along the way. And that makes me feel a bit frustrated. I'm not sure I've tried to achieve this goal before. And so I honor that I'm not sure how to get there. And I choose to have faith. Faith that I'm following my intention, which is to step into my life purpose every day with passion and joy. Because I do what I do for a reason. And I want to become more of me than I've ever been. And be surrounded by the people and things that bring me joy. And that big doubled goal will help that. So this is about way more than the money. This is about everything the money represents for me. And as I let go of any beliefs and programming that say I need to struggle, or that believe that it's necessary to struggle, I align with my passion. I align with my joy. I choose to align with my intention now. And I choose to allow my subconscious mind to make the connection between what my goal is and me being surrounded by people and things that bring me joy. I love allowing into my life people and things that bring me joy. So I'm choosing to have faith that following my intuition and my positive intention is the perfect next right step for me. And the universe will line up the how. And as I clear away this old programming and stress, I'm more free to be me to achieve my goals. Okay, come to a stop for a sec. Take a nice deep breath. Let that go. Have a shake or a drink or whatever you need to do. Some people need to have a little wiggle after they've had a bit of tapping. I certainly do. So let that settle for a second. And then if you'd be so kind, I'd love it if you drop into the comments and just let me know how you feel now. If you look at that doubled goal again, and maybe you can try it again. Or just see how you feel initially. Let me know what you feel has happened to your resistance. I'm just going to take a quick drink myself. I would love to know. What we often find with this is that our resistance goes down. Some other things might come up, and that's normal. I felt emotional towards the end of the tapping. Yeah, that's odds on that that's a good release, and that's a really natural reaction, because oftentimes we hold all this in, don't we? Because as I said, very rarely do we ask for help from a place of shame or a place of embarrassment, right? Or feeling like I'm never going to get there, or I don't know where to get started. And oftentimes we just push it down and we just carry on regardless. And so this is the chance for us to give a voice to the truth of how we feel. And so the emotional release is incredible. I was amazed that I found an unexpected fear. Oh, fantastic. Right. Okay. Well done, Suki. That's brilliant. And this is why I love this, because a very simple act of tapping that reduces the stress around this allows us then to have the clarity and the answers to come forward. And how powerful is that? Because now you're in a position to deal with that, you know? That's fantastic. I'm really happy for you. Janie feels calm and relaxed. Jocelyn feels good and calm. Fantastic. That's great. You may even have other reactions. I don't know how much you know about tapping, but you might feel itchy or like Tracy said, I feel like I'm sweating. I get a really itchy end of my nose, just on the tip, nowhere else. So you might have all these physical reactions too, and that's normal. You might have a really big yawn, that you might feel a bit of a whoosh or a release of some kind, and that's all good too. It might be slower for some people than others, and that's fine. You might have no reaction at all, but just know that this stuff will be moving and shifting underneath in the background, okay? Because this potentially, for some people, it's years and years and years of either keeping it in for fear of looking at it because it feels so awful, or quite simply, you don't know what you don't know, and we don't make the connection. And that's why I'm passionate about taking this out into the world, to help people know that it's not your fault. Okay. So does anybody have any questions for me? Was that useful? Do let me know.
There we go. Emma, would you like people, because it's not a massive group today, would you like people to unmute themselves and actually ask questions if they would like to?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Very happy with that. Yeah.
Well, I'll start off. I'll just start off if that's okay then in that case, because obviously I knew about tapping, but I don't really know how it works and sort of what the theory is behind it. So, you know, but I have to say it was very, very interesting observing sort of the sort of actually identifying some bits and pieces, which I wasn't aware with that actually there, which was very, very useful. And also did feel, you know, the transformation as you were going through. So I have to say, I've found this to be absolutely brilliant. So thank you. But yeah, could you say maybe a bit about it? And then you know, obviously we'll throw the floor open to anybody who would like to chime in and ask any questions or just share your experience.
Sure. So very briefly, the way that tapping works anyway, and linked into this, is that, you know, anytime we're tapping on acupressure points, which sends a signal across the skin to the amygdala, to the threat detection center, to say, you're okay, you're safe, it's all right. Now, that can be used in the moment if we're feeling stressed, or we've got trolley rage, or we're anxious about something, or whatever. But also it can work with ongoing things that, you know, if there's an ongoing condition, or it can relate to things in the past where when you think about it, it still upsets you in some way, or makes you angry or cross or whatever. Because what happens is that when we're tapping, we're actually dissolving the neural pathway between the flash of the memory that comes up in the hippocampus, which is way too quick for us to really notice. But when we think about something in the past, there's that flash of the memory and there's a neural pathway. Oh, tapping actually dissolves that neural pathway. What that means is, it doesn't mean you don't remember it anymore. We're not erasing memories here. It's not like, what's the film, Men in Black, where he has the little pointer and it erases everybody's memories. It's not that. It's basically that you still have the memory, but that neural pathway to that flash of memory usually gives rise to a somatic reaction in the body. That's the clench, that's the feeling of anger or the anxiety or whatever. So can you imagine if that little neural pathway is dissolved, you can remember that thing and it doesn't trigger you anymore. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're dissolving the neural pathways between the visceral reaction we have in the moment. We're calming the reaction, right? The anxiousness, the sadness, the disappointment, the loss, the regret, whatever it is, we're calming that down, and we're actually telling the brain it's safe to think about this and not have those feelings. And then the connected trauma, I keep going like that because I'm in the past, the connected trauma that has happened before, which is the third aspect of all this money stuff, we're actually dissolving those neural pathways so that we, it doesn't take it away, what happened, but it just means that it doesn't keep re-triggering you. So those 50 prods a day we're getting, it doesn't micro re-traumatize you all the time. Now, on a health level, what does that mean? So in terms of health, tapping has been proven to improve your immune system by up to 60%, right? It's a phenomenal tool for improving your general overall health. Whenever you put the body back in a state of homeostasis, it can self-repair and heal, right? So if you're putting your body back into a state of balance from a state of stress response, which we know is incredibly toxic if not metabolized, of course we need it when it's relevant. But these days, stress response is coming at us left, right, and center. I'll give you an example. Does anybody here watch Sky Sports News? Right, so you know what I mean. So you've got the main picture, then you've got a sidebar with the scores on it, you've got something across the top, I think, and you've also got a little runner along the bottom that's going constantly, and you're expected to watch 58 billion things going on one screen at the same time, right? While your phone's going off, the microwave's pinging, whatever else, somebody's knocking at the door, you're getting the prods about the money, something's come up that you've gone into an unarranged overdraft, I don't know, whatever it is. All of those are stressors, and it comes at us so much more these days that we're in a consistent, most people I deal with are in a consistent state of at least low-grade stress. Now, when you've got too much cortisol in your body and adrenaline, it leaches really vital minerals and vitamins out of the bones and stuff as well, like DHEA and all of that stuff. What does that mean? It means that we can't rest and rejuvenate like we ought to be able to. Now, there is also research that talks about the connection between EFT and Alzheimer's, which is that what tapping does is it creates more space between the brain cells when we're sleeping. Now, if you look at the potential cause of Alzheimer's, I believe what they're said is that plaque builds up around the brain cells. So when the space between the brain cells is widened, it's being proven now in current research that there's more space for the cerebrospinal fluid to wash away the plaque. So let that sink in for a minute as well. Can you see how this is so powerful? Does that make sense, Janie? I know I've gone a bit overboard in the explanation, but I hope that...
I think that's absolutely fantastic. And and I wasn't aware that there was that sort of depth of research. Now, the things, I mean, that's a silly thing to say, because things I do know it is such a, particularly in the USA, such a sort of almost ubiquitous thing that people are doing there. But I was also going to ask you, is there a relationship between tapping and EMDR, for example?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. So with EMDR, where you do the eye movements and there's the singing and the looking left and right, there is a part of tapping which a lot of people don't really use anymore, which is the gamut process, the 9 gamut process, where you're tapping on the 9 gamut point and you roll your eyes and back the other way and sing happy birthday and all of that. A lot of people don't use that anymore, but it's been brought over through into emotional freedom technique, which obviously came from TFT, right? Thought field therapy. So it's similar, but not quite the same. But I guess the portion of it that is the same, I believe, is, I'm not a scientist, so please don't quote me on this, but from my many years of research, I believe that it's about the reconsolidation of the memory, right? That's the similar thing. It's the left to right of the brain connecting the two so that memories and thoughts can be properly processed and reconsolidated.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know they get brilliant results in people with autoimmune illness, which is such an interesting thing. Una has said, does it ever not work? What are your thoughts?
Okay, that's a really good question. So there are times where it may not work, yes. So if there is, what do we call it now? Like a clinical diagnosis of a mental health condition like schizophrenia, or I think bipolar is one of them. There's several that have been marked out as EFT wouldn't be particularly successful for, and we just have to be careful with that on our intake and things like that. on a more general level, there are times it might not work, which is A, if you're very dehydrated, because it's part of it is an electromagnetic signal across the skin, right? And we're electromagnetic beings. And if we're not hydrated, hence the electrolyte drink, then the signal isn't as strong. Sometimes if we're wearing, and you can do kinesiology to test this if you had a client where it didn't work for, or it didn't seem to be working for you, if you've got man-made fibers on, sometimes that interferes with the signal. So I only wear cotton and natural fibers for that reason. So polyester is a big one that, you know, is not great because it just skews the signal a little bit. But typically what I find is, Una, is that if it doesn't seem to be working, it's because we haven't got the correct core issue. Now, I have to say that probably 90% of the time, the presenting issue is not the real thing, or not that it's prevalent for the client, but it's not actually the core of the issue, right? And so it just takes good questioning and steady progress. And all I would say is, I think it's very important to start exactly where you are. So for example, rather than delving into loads of stuff, if a client came to me and said, oh, and how are you? Let's get the session started. How are you doing? Oh, I'm so tired, like me. I didn't sleep last night and I just feel really grumpy. We start there. Because what happens is, as you peel those layers of stress away, you automatically kind of get closer to the core of the issue without having to prod and scab pick and actually ask uncomfortable questions. And you keep the client emotionally safe at the same time, right? Because we've got to be trauma careful here, that we don't dive in, because we should never take any therapy really in where it doesn't belong, particularly EFT, unless we are psychology trained or something like that. You know, we have to be trauma aware to go into those deep waters. And so I always advocate for starting exactly where we are, because when we remove one layer of stress, other things come up that we didn't realize we were thinking about. And oftentimes that naturally funnels down to the actual issue. Does that make sense? Fairly long-winded way of explaining it, but it's important to get it all in, because a lot of people give up too quickly with this because they think it's a quick tap, tap, tap and it's done. And actually what we're doing is, at any given moment, we're just giving a voice to the truth of how we feel, so that the real stuff can come up and out, you know, and then we're left in that beautiful state of contentedness and balance and homeostasis, you know.
It's absolutely fantastic. And I will just look at Charlotte's comment, because I know, Charlotte, you usually have to go sort of fairly early. So our wonderful Charlotte Nightingale says, EFT is truly powerful. I used to run workshops in the past, and I recommend it to clients. Brilliant. Yes, it is absolutely amazing, isn't it? Thank you, Charlotte. Lovely comment.
Thank you, Charlotte. That's great.
Yes.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Una says thank you. That's great. Any other questions, anybody at all? Or Anna, is there anything else that you would like to say? Because obviously what I do want you to share is how people can get hold of you. That's really important. And you know, just tell us a little bit about other aspects of your work, if you will. And everybody, feel free to chime in, you know, feel free to get involved either in the comments, or, you know, feel free to unmute yourself if you would like to do so.
I think Tony had a quick question, and then Tracy put a hand up as well, didn't you? So
thank you. Well, thank you for doing it. It was really good. One thing you mentioned there, I think Jane mentioned about the research. I do too. I'm a psychology student. I do psychology and counselling. And I explained to tutors that I'm also a hypnotherapist and coach. And that's what I do. And my tutors meet with conflict all the time because of some of these other things that I look into. And I have a podcast where I try and bring different modalities to people. Now, one of the biggest ones that came up was EFT. That they're saying it doesn't exist. There is no scientific research to prove anywhere that EFT actually works. Yeah, I got an EFT session every Tuesday night, and I see the results of that from people. Now, 2 years ago when I started with college course, I probably wouldn't have believed them rather than that. And I explained to them is that the more you see people do it, the more you believe it must work. So it works for them. But where do you get the actual facts from when you mentioned about the research shows this? Is there somewhere I could get that from, or somewhere so I can take it back to them and say, like, that is actual proof?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. Thank you for asking that. So the person that I tend to, well, there's a few people that I tend to go to for research. One of them is Dawson Church in the States. He has pioneered a lot of research, particularly at the Esalen Institute in America. The other one is Peter Stapleton. She's an Australian lady. She's done a lot of research into EFT and weight loss and cravings and things like that. And then Helena Phone, actually, who used to be the chair of EFT International, she does a lot of research as well, and she runs EFT and Mindfulness Centre, which is where my courses are accredited through, as well as the CMA. But those are three. But what I will do as well is I'll go and grab you. Which one is it now? My memory is shocking when I'm on the spot. I think there's the Dawson Church website, and I will get these links for you, Tony. And
That'd be brilliant, yeah.
In the thing, yeah. And there's also another one. It's Gary Craig's original website, and I'm fairly sure that there's a ton of references on there.
Seen that name before.
Yeah. Papers and research, because I think there's something like 30 odd studies now. There's a hell of a lot that's been done now, but it's good to be armed, isn't it, with that information?
Yeah, it's just different. You put in the spot with them, because I try and turn the tables on them when they keep telling me that in front of other people and say, yeah, but there's no actual scientific evidence this works, and I'll say, can you show me the stuff that says it doesn't, please? And they just sort of brushed that away. Well, there's none that says it does work. I didn't ask that. I asked for the evidence that shows it doesn't work, because you can't have one without the other. It isn't fair. You've got to have a reasonable comparison. But it seems like a lot of them are just blocked. They just have a thing in their mind that these things don't work, and that's it.
And I think a lot of that comes from our sort of, what's the word? The fact that we're used to, the NHS, and things are done within this, and nothing wrong with it, no judgment there. But it's outside of that scope, right? And so a lot of times people can't see outside of the scope of a doctor's diagnosis or whatever else. And because it isn't approved by the NHS yet, although it is being worked on, a lot of people disbelieve it. And I get that. It's just a changing of a paradigm. So I'll grab you a load of links for that. That'll be useful. Yeah, that's the great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Guys, no problem. Can I jump in there as well? So I just went to PubMed. Tony's is going to be really useful for you, and anybody else actually. Always go to PubMed. So, for example, the search term I used just now was EFT tapping. So that's just EFT tapping. There are various other permutations, like using, for example, the word emotional freedom technique. But just using the search term EFT tapping, I've got 8 results coming up in published papers in things like Brain Science, the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disorders, the Journal of Holistic Nursing, and the Journal of Mental Health and University Health, and Advances in Mind-Body Medicine. There's an awful lot out there. There's huge amount of research in this field, and that was just a little quick on the phone search. Okay.
Thank you, Jenny. It's brilliant.
That's where you should be looking, anybody. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks, Janie.
For all of our disciplines, not obviously not just EFT, for all, if you are practicing a particular discipline and you really need to figure out what is actually going on out there, go to PubMed. That'll be the best source for you.
Fab. Great stuff. And I think, Tracy, you had a question, didn't you? I must admit, I've got to go in 5 minutes because I'm doing this again in another group. But
I was just thinking, it was just when you were confirming something in your past.
Yes.
And I actually feel like I've had financial trauma because someone actually ripped me off really badly. And ever since, my confidence has just been flat. And I was just thinking, wow, that's really something I need to work with. But it was something that highlighted it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not funny, but it's coincidental that you should say that, because it's one of the things that I help people deal with. And it's one of the things I had to deal with to get through my financial trauma, right? To be able to then get rid of my debt and all sorts of things. And if you wanted to have a chat, Tracy, on Zoom with me separately, we can totally do that and have a look at maybe some pointers for where to start with that. But it is a very real thing. Financial trauma is a very real thing, and it stays with you, and because we don't know what we don't know, we blame ourselves, and on it goes, and it's just a perpetuating cycle. So I'm really glad that you've had that come to light, and I'm happy to share with you some ways that you can help resolve that. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay. Is it recorded? Yes, I do believe it is.
Yes. Yeah, so Emma, what I'd love you to do would be to share with everybody how they can contact you, if you don't mind, because I don't want to make you late.
So I'm going to pop the easiest way to get hold of me is on Facebook, which is just facebook.com/innersmilecoach. That is my Facebook page. I'm on there every day doing the daily tap, which is how I teach people to tap for free, just using affirmations and things like that. It's not a therapeutic EFT session. It's a bit of fun, but it teaches them how. I'm also working with small business owners, and I do have a program at the moment that is, that's going on, which is a 12-week program in a group format to deal with exactly these kinds of things: financial trauma, goal trauma, parental paradigms, all these sorts of things. So you can either drop me a direct message on Facebook, or you can message me on 529469. That's my mobile number. Drop me a little WhatsApp or give me a call or something like that, and we can have a little chat about how I can help you. And if it's not me that helps you, great. I just want you to get support,
Thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing, Emma. We'll let you go. And actually, I know Tony's got to go. I'm pretty sure that Charlotte probably needs to go. Yes, I know you do, Charlotte. Yes, thank you. It's been absolutely wonderful seeing you, everybody. Absolutely amazing. I cannot thank you enough, Emma. You've been just beyond. This is so useful.
Thank you, Jane, for having me, and everybody for being so involved. I appreciate it.
Such an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much indeed, everybody. And for those of you who don't know, we've got the final resilience and positive psychology training coming up on the 3rd of July, and then we will not be running another one in this format until possibly winter, but maybe not then, because we've got other bits and pieces that we're working on at the moment behind the scenes. So if you are interested in doing it, the next one is on the 3rd of July. And if you need info, then just drop me a quick, well, I suppose probably email is probably easiest. Okay, lovelies. Thank you very much. And I shall love you and leave you. Take care. Have a great weekend. Thank you so very much. All the best.
Bye, everybody. Bye.